So this is a story about Virgo, South Node, conjunct Pluto, all Virgo. So I'll tell you in a second the story, as in my example. Some kids screaming outside. But bear in mind the three archetypes that are gonna be essentially identified or manifested or expressed in this story are Pluto, so it's about power and all flavors of it, like powerlessness and powerfulness and anything in between. South Node means past lives, so like memories and meaning your South Node themes are things you remember, and you might not remember them so clearly, like, oh yeah, that was 1815 and I was in the trenches and I witnessed horrors and that's why I don't know, whatever. Well, maybe you will, but I certainly don't. But you will know, and I'll touch on that, when it's a past life memory, even if you don't necessarily recognize it as such, and because of how you experience it. And like I said, I'll speak of that in a second. And the third piece is Virgo piece. And again, because it's on South Node, it's for me. So the Virgo archetype is the one I have done to death and back, and I'm now kind of using a healthier, or the task is to use the healthier version of Virgo, like discernment, for instance, as opposed to just going by the old knee-jerk reactions out of sense of worthlessness or imperfection, or it's just not good enoughness and all the rest of the law vibes of Virgo. So the story is that so for the last and this has been me all my life, but for the last few days I've been like, it's like I think it's come up to be properly dealt with and worked with. Every day, every year, every month, there is a batch of things that I'm working through. So it's like, when like there's a backlog and there's stuff that it's going to come your way and then you work through. So this is one of them, and I was always aware of it, and it drove me nuts, and I just embarrassed myself in front of mostly my partner, but even sometimes others, to the you'll see what I mean in a second. So, like we live in a place where it's just huge windows, and it's just lately this summer has been great in England. And so to me there's nothing more amazing and beautiful when other than when you bring the outside inside. So it's like you open all the windows, and we have big windows, so it's like really when you open them it's like you're literally almost outside. They're huge. We are also, but one of them where I spend most of the time is actually you can't close it so easily, so you have to get a whole anyway, just palaver. So I really don't close on it. I absolutely have to, because it's, like I say, a major exercise, and sometimes I can't do it on my own. I have to get my partner. So, and I'm there at the moment, and I'm mostly in that room. And the window's now open, and usually, like I say, it's open, and there's this breeze, and it's fresh, and it's wonderful. But we're in the neighborhood. We have about 3 restaurants one side, and we have some outside the other end, and there's a lot of barbecues going on this summer. And then we have a neighbor who smokes on this terrace because it probably is a lodger, so I suppose he can't smoke inside. And then we have neighbors downstairs who just love to cook fried onions, which I love eating usually, but yeah, I think you know where I'm going with this. But the ridiculousness of this is the extent of my fury when these fumes come into my space. The affront, the offense I feel that's been committed on me against my will, which is true. I mean, I have not. It's against my will. I don't want it. And I get so... It's like... A few times it made me cry. I cried. This is how powerless, like particularly South Node, right? Pluto on South Node, powerless. At this, I can't do anything about it. I could close the window, but by the time I close it, these things come and go. It'll be all lovely and fresh, and I'll probably have that for another few hours, and then it'll come back, and I'm crushed. I'm properly crushed within seconds in this setup that I just described to you. And it's a nanosecond. I just turn from just the most relaxed, wonderful state to just besides myself. And like I say, because I'm at this stage, I've arrived at a point where I can actually deal with it best I've ever been able to, just kind of look at it and go, okay, so what is this? and it's I'm not there yet. This is this week, like it's just one after another. It's just the weather's the most amazing outside, and yet everyone's cooking, frying onions, and just the restaurants are going crazy. Pandemic has ruined it. The end of Corona, bless everyone's heart. So it's like in my face daily, a few times a day. But yeah, so I'm like, what is it? What is it? And one of the things that I'm getting is clearly is this sense of I have to first. It's that sense of powerlessness. So I have no way of stopping this, and that's real. And the piece about being so unreasonably that reality doesn't warrant itself. My reaction is beyond excessive. That's when you know it's a past life thing. It's not real. It's not of this life. Then why is it triggering such intense fury? And fury is, in my case at least, a sign of like profound sense of powerlessness. Basically, I'm doing what I don't want to be doing. I'm withstanding something that I find so offensive. But I also think there is a piece of Virgo. So this that humiliation of like feeling like you just, and I visually have scenes that kind of flash through in front of my eyes, as it were, of like proper like a servanty or like a slave kind of, and that's with Pluto in Virgo often. And I've been told this many times actually that I feel a kind of real connection with African cultures, like an Indian, like Indian, Asian Indian, India as in continent, and yeah. So it could well be that I have my anyway. So I genuinely think pretty recently, past lives, I was either from Africa or from India or both, and I could have been a slave easily. And it's that sense of utter sheer just I have no power. I am absolutely powerless to change anything. But there is also a piece of Virgo there about so that's Pluto, right, so far, and South Node, past life. But the Virgo piece is there, the humiliation, which is humility and humbleness of Virgo themes, and the humiliation is an expression of that. Feeling so powerless, and then in those flashes of memories of sorts, people were gloating at my powerlessness. So that's a humiliation piece. But there is also something slightly different, like because there are many lifetimes and many timelines that are kind of decoded on this particular stream of consciousness, memory, energetic print, or whatever. And that's something that's about. It is powerlessness, but it's about work. It's about I'm asked to. I have to work the way I don't want to work, so I have to close the windows, or I have to fix, or I have to get different windows, or I have to change I have to accommodate my life for someone else. And although that's also, like I said, powerlessness, but there is this piece where Virgo is an archetype of a nurse, but nurse of a kind of like in the wars, or the nurse or the kind of carer, maybe more so than the nurse in the wars. Why not even that? But more like a caretaker. So I'm having to take care of all these mundane chores, like to fix the window, which doesn't bother me. It's perfectly fine, and the fact that it's love. I'm forced to do something before boring mundane tasks, and not to mention that the trigger is so mundane. But then that's a piece about past lives. When something so mundane triggers such an excessive reaction, is a sign there is a story far bigger and far older than just that instance. But the mundaneness of it, and how my mundane life, like routine daily, needs to change, Virgo, because of that intrusion. Yeah, so if you are Pluto in Virgo or Pluto conjunct South Node, you can be any other sign, but I would love to know if you have any stories you want to tell me, or you want to jot down in the comments, Pluto conjunct South Node in particular.